Hey everybody, Garrett Sussman here, the head of content at Authority Labs. Thank you so much for joining us today for the local SEO, how to attract local businesses in 2020. I am joined by some amazing local SEO experts. Today, we're joined by Greg Gifford, who's the VP of Search at Search Lab. Thanks for joining us today, Greg.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be back.
Awesome. We've got Darren Shaw, who is the founder at Whitespark. Thanks for being here, Darren.
Thanks, Garrett. It's fun to be here.
Excellent. Talking with the crazies. Yeah. And finally, we've got the one and only Kelcey Drapp, who is the SEO manager at Dealeron. Thank you for being here, Kelcey.
Thanks. I'm excited to dive into some fun stuff today.
Absolutely. So it's really cool. There's a lot of interesting things going on with local. We're going to ask our experts a series of questions and just have this really great conversation. We will save some time at the end to take your questions. So, throughout the webinar, feel free to use the question section there. But we are going to talk everything local. So, Darren, let's start with you because we're going to dive right into directory citations, which is your kind of bread and butter. But What is local SEO aside from directory citations? What's involved?
Aside from citations? All right, I think citation questions. I think there's like 5 pillars to local search, and that's, your Google My Business listing and what you're doing on GMB. There's a ton of stuff to do there. We could spend hours talking about that. There's reputation management, your reviews, particularly your Google reviews and reviews on other sites. There's your website, so making sure your website's fast, mobile, optimized, has the right content. Those kinds of factors are huge. And then links. So and then citations is the other piece. So those are the sort of 5 pillars of local search. And so the 4 other than citations are the ones I mentioned. Yeah.
Gotcha. So what's involved with a lot of that? You're starting out a business. You want to have a digital presence. Kind of where's the starting point for building that out?
Your GMB listing. Yeah. Start by creating a GMB listing. I did a case study for MozCon last year, and I found that simply having a GMB listing, no website, no anything else, you can actually start ranking with that. So, as soon as you create that listing and it's verified, it'll be up on Google and you can start driving search traffic immediately. So creating a GMB listing is always the first place to start. You want to optimize it as much as possible. Categories is number 1. So making sure you have the most specific a primary category, the one that matches whatever keyword you want to rank for. That's sort of step number 1. You get that right, you're going to start driving search traffic from your immediate area. Then beyond that, it's really reviews. You want to start driving reviews to your GMB listing as well. Those 2 things will really have a huge impact on your Google listing. All the other areas, you should fill it out, but those all become more conversion factors than ranking factors. So, you want to be putting Google posts out. You want to make sure that your listing is fully optimized with all kinds of content, adding some Q&A, those kinds of things. So just make sure your listing's all optimized as possible. I could just keep talking for an hour about all the other things you want to do in local search. I don't know where to stop this question.
No, I think you highlighted a lot of great things, whether it's the Q&A or just the fact that Google My Business is really this foundational element of local SEO. Greg, when we're talking about Google My Business and these new features that are coming out, how has local search changed over the last 5 years? How are users changing how they actually search for businesses online?
Well, it's, the explosion of mobile search has kind of really brought local more to the forefront, because Darren and I have been out talking about local search for 12, 13 years now. And it's always been this really niche thing. And now it's more important and more prevalent because Google's kind of switched how intent works. And Dan Liebson did some cool stuff looking at a lot of queries that used to pull e-commerce intent that now pull local intent and show a map pack. So Echo. But yeah, so a lot of businesses that used to not have to worry about local have to worry about local now. So I think, it's been around for forever, and yeah, it's kind of changed as far as which signals matter, but I think the biggest change is that it applies to a lot more businesses than it used to apply to.
I think that's so true. And when you're thinking about the industries and industry specific, like Kelcey, have you noticed that in the automotive industry? Is there anything specific that's, happened for your clients?
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really prevalent with car industry clients. Oh, there. Let's see if it's still there. Okay, sorry. One of the things that's really prevalent with our industry, and it kind of touches on what Darren was saying, is with your primary category, because everything is so location specific, that's going to really kind of be affected a little bit differently than a business where there isn't a lot of competition. For example, if you're in an area where there are a lot of car dealers and you're a Ford dealer, but you're only trying to rank for Ford terms, you're probably going to rank for those anyway, but you're going to be less competitive for terms. There's going to be more competition, but you'll be not optimizing for more competitive terms, such as used cars or car dealership. And so just knowing what the keywords you need to use in the right places is really essential, especially for car dealers, but really for any business where there's a lot of competition in a very compact area. For example, I'm in the Dallas, Texas area, and there's a car dealer every quarter of a mile down every major highway. So if you're not prepared to optimize for that, especially like Greg was saying with mobile, you're going to get pushed down or pushed out entirely.
I think that's a really great point. And are people, searching for dealerships on mobile? Like, how do you think people are actually changing the way they search and discovering you using those keywords? Like, are people getting smarter? Or people using voice activated? What is it?
So with voice search, there is a little bit of it, but it's very kind of new still, especially for the automotive industry. What we have found is that there's usually kind of tiers of how people search, and there's more informational, and then there's more like transactional and ready to buy. So really it depends on what that dealer is trying to go after and what their market looks like, but a lot of times it's a lot easier to go after those users that are not necessarily just looking for information. They're ready to buy, but at the same time you can still target with very intelligent content users that are just looking for information. We do model research pages and things like that. So that instead of going to Edmunds or going to the OEM website, they'll go to your dealership website. So I guess it has changed in the sense that pretty much everything is done on mobile, and this is something that has been kind of purported across all industries for years, is that mobile is growing and that it's kind of overtaken desktop, and that's very true in automotive too. I can't think of a single client that we have that does not have the majority of their traffic as mobile.
That's awesome. And you were on, because just before this, we were joking about whether or not we were going to talk about voice search. And Darren's like, I don't know if we should do it. And I'm like, I don't know if we should do it. And Kelcey's like, got the answers right there. So Darren, did you have any thoughts? Did you want to chime in on voice search before we go any further?
No, I think voice is just an extension of regular typed in search, really. So there isn't something you need to do that's different. So in terms of your strategies and what you're attacking and things that you're focused on, it's the same work. So Google's going to surface results based off of, if you match the query intent, and it's the same thing on voice or typed in search. So there's not really anything new to do. I do have a question for Kelcey though.
Yeah.
You mentioned something interesting to me, which is if you're a Ford dealer, you're going to rank for that anyways. So in your case, do you recommend that dealerships, instead of using Ford dealer as their primary category, that they use auto dealer? I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of cases in which, like in a place like Dallas where there's a lot of Ford dealers, it would make sense to use Ford dealer. But if you're like, kind of in a suburb or out in the middle of nowhere, and there are other car dealerships, but there are not other dealerships that sell the same types of cars as you, then yeah, it's a lot easier to rank for that model or that make or whatever it is. It's a lot harder to be competitive with used cars terms, especially in these kind of areas with lots of dirt lots. These random used car places, they kick everyone else's ass in
For sure.
terms of ranking. So that's where I would say car dealership or used car dealer would be maybe a little bit more competitive. And again, that's also going to vary by market to market. You know, if you're not ranking for Ford and you are a Ford dealer, maybe you should look at that as your primary category.
Sure.
Until you get that, you know, kind of visibility increase. So I think it's really going to, you know, depend on your market and really how much visibility you have to start with.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I wonder how that applies to other industries too, right? Like if you're an ophthalmologist, but you're the only ophthalmologist in town, so
Right.
you know, are you better off to put some other term as your primary category?
Yeah,
Did
and I
you
guess
see the
Greg.
Did you see the change that they just rolled out that now Google My Business is allowing dealerships to have different listings per brand?
Yeah, I did. And that is huge, huge,
I didn't
huge
see
for
that.
us because we have so many dealers, like, you know, basically, again, in the middle of nowhere, and they're the only dealer for 100 miles in any direction. And they don't just sell CDJRs, but they also sell Chevys and they also sell Kias and whatever. And they have all these brands under one wheelhouse, and they're mandated to have separate sites, you know, by the OEMs, but they can't have separate listings because it's all in one business. That's something I've been writing about recently and researching a lot. So yeah, that's a very interesting change. I'm very curious to see how that affects our clients going forward.
But it's a weird move for Google to say, like, I get it if it's like a Toyota, Volvo, Mercedes dealership where it's three things that are typically unique, but you know, with like an FCA dealership where it's always one entity, that's Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, why would you want to have separate listings for each brand? And the crazy thing is the rule says it's not only a separate listing for each brand, you can have also another listing for the whole entity. So you have the Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram listing plus a Chrysler listing plus a Dodge, Jeep, or Dodge plus Jeep plus Ram. So now it seems like it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think it's going to be spamtastic, honestly, because everybody's going to go out. And now you're going to have your department listings for each of those. So you'll have, you know, a service and a parts listing for each one. So you're going to end up with one real world entity. What the public sees as a dealership is going to have 15 to 20 GMB listings. It just doesn't seem to make sense.
But wouldn't you want to jump on that? Like if I was a dealership and I carried 5 different makes of vehicles, I would absolutely want to create those 5 listings because now I have the chance to rank really well for Chrysler plus Dodge plus Jeep. Wouldn't I want to do that?
Potentially, yeah, it's going to help you rank better, but the problem is going to come to reputation because now a Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram dealer has as many cars on the lot as a Ford dealer or a Toyota dealer. So if you start separating your reviews based on sales out among the brands, you're really diluting the number of reviews that you're going to get on each listing. So I don't know if it's going to be as robust and powerful as having them all on one listing.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have to see.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I mean, what role does products play? Because they've been, you know, kind of fooling around with product attributes on your GMB listing. Like if you're having brand listings, is that something that you recommend to clients, Kelcey? Like in terms of how does that apply to auto dealerships?
Right. So that's actually really interesting that you bring that up because I literally was just having a conversation about products and Google My Business listings like 2 hours ago with one of my team members. But it's very interesting because a lot of industries are excluded from having products within their GMB. They can only list services. And most of our clients do not have that ability. And so I don't know if it's against automotive as a whole that no one in automotive can list products because we were looking at, for example, the car dealership we were looking at has a motorsports dealer and they deal 4x4s and golf carts and things like that. They are able to list their products. And so it's kind of a similar industry, but it's not quite the same. So I'm curious to see how that'll change. I know, for example, a couple of years ago, you could list products in Google My Business for automotive dealers, but I'm just kind of, in this industry, it's hard to say because I can't do it for my clients. But for other industries that I've worked with, you know, in my freelance time or whatever, most of those have been service industries. So unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of experience with that, given that I stay kind of in the service area, but I would love to see it come back for car dealers, that is for sure.
And that kind of segues into my next question, which I'm curious about when it comes to, Darren mentioned a bunch of what drives local search ranking today, but what are some of the struggles of trying to do local SEO? And I kind of prompt you with this idea that, Google is always a moving target. Darren, what are some of the struggles that local SEOs or businesses kind of encounter, either in a day-to-day business or just building out their strategy?
So I think one of the biggest ones is spam. So it's a huge struggle in local search where, in some industries in particular, you can run a search and there are 10 businesses above you that are not actually real businesses. So just keyword stuffed, fake listings created, and they're mostly lead gen sites that then sell the leads to other businesses. And so it's a massive problem. And then so Google's trying to combat that. And then the secondary problem that happens from this is suspension issues. So if you are in one of these industries and you have a location that's too close to a virtual office, they might associate that virtual office with your business and you get suspended. So suspensions are really becoming a big problem across local search as well. And so legitimate businesses are getting suspended because Google's trying to fix the spam problem. And so it's just a real mess. It's one of the biggest struggles in local search, absolutely. I think another big one is the emphasis that Google puts on proximity, particularly for businesses that are service area business. It's really frustrating. So if you are, let's say, a locksmith or a plumber or a furnace repair company, carpet cleaner, you can only rank within like a 10-mile radius outside of your physical business location. So let's say you don't even have an office, you service the whole city. Let's say you're in Chicago. Chicago's a massive area. You are not only going to rank within a 10-mile radius around your business. It seems so ridiculous that, for a business that serves everyone else, your ranking proximity is so tight, and it's unfortunate. I think Google might be making some moves to try and fix this. I hope that they are, but that's a huge struggle and frustration for service area businesses. And do you know what happens because of that? Spam. What they do is they go and they create fake listings around every other zip code so that they can have the ability to rank in more regions. And so they're actually amplifying their spam problem. So those are the three struggles that come to my mind. I don't know. Anyone else got some other GMB struggles?
We've had a lot of issues lately pop up with department listings. So when you have a department listing that's nested underneath the main business listing, for some reason, when you do a search for the business, the department listing shows up instead. And so that's really happening a lot, mostly in automotive, but it's happening in other verticals too, where you may have Jim Bob Ford's service department, and that's what shows up when you search for Jim Bob Ford. And there may not be that many reviews there, and it's the wrong hours, and it's really frustrating. And you go point it out to GMB, and they're like, "Oh, that's a search problem. That's not us." Well, no, because it worked fine a month ago, and now it's broken. And as far as a problem in local search, I know that the GMB support team is trying their best, but they're just so overloaded with so many requests because there's so many problems. I just feel like support, 2 or 3 years ago, I feel like we got better support than we get now. And it's not that they're not trying. It's like we were talking about on Slack the other day, Darren, like, they're real people, they're trying their best. I just think that sometimes you can put in a request and not hear something back for 3 weeks because they're just so overloaded. And that's really unfortunate, especially if you're a smaller business and you don't have a local SEO person helping you, you're kind of stuck up a creek without a paddle because you don't really have any way to get support or anyone to help you. And that drastically affects your business if you're suspended or you're not showing up.
Yeah.
This is business impacting stuff. I mean, do you guys have any solutions? Like, what do you recommend to clients or, businesses, say they have a spam situation, whether it's, a lead gen company or just a competitor that's keyword stuffing and support's not available? Sometimes it feels like there's no answers. What do you recommend for them to do? What's their best chance?
You just got to fight the spam. So you can report it. So there's, a number of posts out there. Whitespark has a post about spam fighting, how to do it. But basically, it's just a matter of, but like, what small business has time to do that? Agencies might include it as part of their service where they monitor the search results, When they see spammy listings, they report them through the various methods. But even then, it like takes a while for those spam reports to be approved. Oftentimes, Google like denies them. You can see a listing that has like 100 keywords stuffed in the business name, and that spam report will get denied. It's like, it's just crazy. And so I think that's another struggle with Google. Whoever's monitoring and moderating those requests, like they either were not trained properly, or I don't know. It's like, especially when you have like consumer vigilantes out there trying to clean up your results for you, you should at least have a team on the back end that's moderating this and approving the stuff that's clearly spam. So, you know, there's not really much you can do to fight spam other than hiring a company that does it. So, you know, I think Ben Fisher at Steady Demand he has a dedicated service that's just spam fighting. We include spam fighting as part of our GMB management service. You know, for a small business, if you're in one of those spammy industries, it's a pretty valuable thing to do, because if you do knock out the 5 people that are above you, look at that, you're now number 1. The value of being in that number 1 position is super worth it. So spam fighting is really all you can do. It sucks. It's weird that we're in this position where it's like a service that local search people have to offer to clients to clean up Google's messy results. Like, Google should just try to fix the spam problem.
Well, especially for some verticals, you don't even have to do legitimate SEO. Like, you don't have to build content. You don't have to optimize the site. You don't have to worry about citations or even your own Google My Business or reviews. All you have to do is fight the spam and knock out all the cheating mofos that are above you.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that it's that bad in certain verticals.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We're in this industry, and we know like the impact the local SEO can have. But to your point, Greg, is there any evidence that local SEO is even necessary for a business that doesn't rely on people walking in through their front door? Like, how can you evangelize local SEO? Do people need it?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's pretty easy in most situations to show that local is necessary, because, you know, there's 13, you know, we're assuming that it's a business that needs local SEO. So there's going to be a map pack that shows up, which gives you 13 spots on page 1, but you're going to have, you know, Yelp or TripAdvisor or these aggregate sites that are, you know, pulling in multiple listings. They're the best 10 restaurants in town or whatever. Once you take those aggregates out, there's maybe 6, 7, 8 spots for legitimate local businesses to show up in. And if there's more than 6 or 7 businesses in that vertical in your town, you got to be doing local SEO if you want to show up there, you know. And a lot of times there's 20, 30, 40, 50. You know, if you're a plumber, there's easily 50 plumbers in your town. And if you're not showing up on page 1, you're not getting the business. So you've got to do local SEO.
And that's a great point. We've talked a lot about Google My Business. Let's move to the website, right? So content on your website. When you're talking about building out that content and trying to rank for different keywords, Kelcey, should you create pages on your site for every individual location that you have, or is that not considered the way to go when trying to use your website to rank for local SEO?
So I would say that's kind of a delicate balance. It's really going to depend on what locations you have, where you're trying to serve. Something that, you know, I have done for years is local silo pages. You know, there's articles out the butt about it. Greg has written a bunch, but those aren't as effective as they used to be. In some cases, you know, again, market specific, industry specific, they're going to be very helpful in getting traffic from that area that you serve or that you're wanting to serve or get more traffic from. But in some cases, they just get kind of glossed over because they're not really that important. And if it's something you don't update a lot, obviously it's going to get pushed down in the index. So I'd say it kind of depends. And it's like, I personally would do almost like a case study on it for a client and say, okay, this has worked for you. Let's keep doing it, or maybe let's change this up because it's not working and try. One thing I'm very adamant against that I learned from Greg is don't stuff locations into anything. You don't want to list them off, you know, in a piece of content or in like a title tag. So that's, you know, where local silo pages are helpful, but I just don't see them passing as much traffic and value as they have in the past.
Do you agree, Darren? Like, do you think that the way that Google is kind of getting smarter, like Kelcey says, where you can't really manipulate it as much in the past with like a siloed page? Would you try it out with clients? Would you recommend it's not worth their time? What do you think?
Yeah, so if we're talking a local silo page, one example I have that has worked really well for a client that we've had for ages is it's a law firm in Edmonton, but they also will take cases from the surrounding area of the province, right? So they have created these location pages. So like they're located in Edmonton. They also created a page for Fort McMurray, Grand Prairie, Red Deer, all these sort of surrounding cities that are within like 200 miles. And those pages drive a significant amount of traffic. And so the trouble with them is it comes to authority. So those pages aren't going to rank. They're not going to usually outrank a really strong business. So like they would not drive traffic from Calgary. Calgary is a huge city with thousands of lawyers, so they're not going to be able to drive traffic. But any of these sort of smaller locales, they actually drive quite a bit of traffic from them. And so those, if that's what a silo page is, then yes, I think that there is still good value for them. But I do think it makes sense that they're not as great as they used to be. But the investment to build them is pretty easy. It doesn't take that long, and the value and return on them is still pretty high. So I still think there's great value in doing them. They also come in quite handy for those service area businesses. They're not going to get into the local pack, but they can create these silo pages, these city pages, so they can rank in all the sort of surrounding towns. And they do typically drive some traffic, and so there's great value there.
That's really interesting. It makes sense just based on the location and where you're trying to rank and how that can really impact, especially I can imagine with some more longer tail local SEO, like if you have the right content in there that people are searching for, like your ophthalmologist example earlier, maybe in a busier area it might work. Moving on a little, Greg, let's talk schema markup. When we're talking about schema markup for local SEO, what are some of the must-haves these days? What should people be paying attention to when they're, producing structured data markup on their websites? Is there anything that should be applied to every web page to optimize?
Well, I mean, you always want to make sure that as a local business, you've got your local schema markup. So it's, whatever your local business type is, the schema definition of your hours and your location and coordinates, so that you're very explicitly telling Google, hey, here's who I am, here's what type of business I am, here's when I'm open. Everybody was really big on the review schema markup a while ago because you could get all the review stars, and then that went away. But it looks like a couple of sites are getting them back, so maybe they're dialing that back a little bit. So, if you're collecting your own testimonials, so you're not taking reviews from Google, but you're collecting your own testimonials, their first party reviews, you can mark those up and put those on your site and potentially get some value out of that. I know a lot of people lately have been messing around with FAQ schema and getting kind of the FAQ widget there in the SERPs. I mean, we've done it. I haven't really seen a whole lot of benefit out of doing it. I'm kind of always on the side of, sure, there's tons of schema that you can put on the site, but does it really provide any value? And so the local schema clearly provides value. Product schema, if you've got any sort of product that you're selling, like Kelcey works a dealer on, all their car pages are automatically marked up with product schema, so you get all the product markup and all the extra rich little snippet stuff that shows up in your search result. So that's cool. Obviously do that. But if you're just a mom and pop small business, I don't think you have to worry a whole lot beyond just your local schema.
I appreciate that when we're talking about reputation and review schema, like reputation continues to become a really important part of local SEO. Darren mentioned authority. When it comes to reviews, Kelcey, have you noticed what do you recommend for your clients, whether it's, focusing on the services versus the actual sales side of the dealership? How do you approach reputation and reviews in the automotive industry?
That's a great question. So in general, it's kind of hard to get good reviews for some dealers. As we all know, people prefer to complain than to praise. But one thing that I always encourage my dealers, is to ask for those reviews, whether that's via Podium, whether that's through, a service like gather up, whatever it is, or even if it's like you hand out a business card that says, hey, if you had a good experience, please leave us a review. That's something that I have seen a lot of success with, actually, is just putting it on a business card, because a lot of people are kind of old-fashioned. They'll hold on to those things. In terms of the types of reviews, that's not something I've ever really pushed, only because a lot of times that is very specific to the business itself. And for example, like we had a car dealership a couple of years ago, and service was their bread and butter. Like they sold a lot of cars, obviously, because they're a car dealership, but like lifting trucks and, hydraulics, like all the fun stuff that comes with, that service side, it was what they made the most money on. And so the majority of their reviews were service related. For them, that's what they wanted. Now, if they had wanted to break out and, push more car sales, we might say, hey, make sure your salesman give out this card, or ask for those reviews. And so I think in that regard, it can be very specific to what the business needs and what the business wants. Whereas there's another dealer here in the Dallas area who has an immaculate service department. All of their technicians have like 20 years of experience each. Like it's crazy good service. No one knows about it. They are known for their used car sales, and they get tons of used cars reviews. So that's where I would say maybe you do push your service in this case, because you're not getting those reviews. So I think it's really helpful to push for reviews where you really need them and where you want to get that business. And then, another thing that is also really effective is including service-related words or, sales-related words or whatever it is in your ask. So, hey, could you review our service department? Or we saw you bought a Ford truck. Tell us about your car buying experience, or whatever. And whatever the keyword is that you want, to have better visibility for, include that in your ask, because they're more likely to then incorporate it into their review as well.
And that's fascinating. Darren, I know at Whitespark you guys have a reputation tool. So you really know about the value of reviews to businesses. What's your advice? What are some of the big kind of secrets to review generation that work for your customers? And what are some of those nuances that you see from industry to industry in terms of how to approach review generation?
Yeah, so we do have an automated software, and it's great, and it provides so much value beyond just reviews in terms of understanding your satisfaction score across different industries, doing surveys, gathering internal first-party testimonials and feedback, really understanding your business. So if you have a business that is doing a lot of volume, there's great value in sort of setting up something like that, and especially multi-location businesses. In terms of review generation, I absolutely love the manual approach, and I advocate for it. That's what we do for all of our GMB management service clients and all of our other clients. We build them a nice little business card that has the QR code on it. And I'll just tell you, QR codes used to suck. Now they actually work pretty good. They're natively built into all cell phones. You just point your camera at it and boom, it goes right to the website. So actually QR codes are back, and they actually work pretty good on these little review cards. So we have this little review card template. It says, please leave us a review on Google. It has the Google short link and the QR code. That method is it's like 10 times more powerful and effective than anything else for getting reviews. So it's this process. At the end of the sale, at the end of the job, whatever it is, the person that did the job says, hey, would you be willing to leave us a review on Google? They get the verbal yes. Thanks very much. Great. Here's a card to make it really easy for you. You can either just point your phone at the QR code or just type in that short link and leave us the review. And then, you shake hands, deal is done. You do that, you're going to get so many more reviews because the person has verbally kind of agreed to it. They've created this connection rather than just some random email that comes from an automated system. The chance of getting the review is so much higher with that method. And so we rolled this out for a number of our clients, and it's like through the roof. So many reviews. So it's just doing that ask and then making it easy for the customer. It's been really effective for us. And when you talk about just your GMB listing, and there's really only two main things you can do to improve your rankings, your categories, and your reviews, you've got to get those reviews coming in. It's huge for improving your rankings and then expanding your visibility, getting more people looking at your Google posts, getting more people seeing what you offer. There's huge value to that. So that's what we push at Whitespark.
I think that's huge too in terms of, the control where you do have, and people have said, I know you've done, kind of some local search ranking studies in the past, proximity you can't control, but people say reviews are up there in terms of moving the needle. Is that what you found from your research?
Absolutely, yeah. You definitely see that as you get more reviews, you expand your radius. If you look at some of these ranking tools like Local Falcon, where it shows you your pin and then how far you are, as you get more reviews, you generally expand your radius. You reach more people. Google definitely is using reviews as a ranking factor. It does have an impact, and it also has a sort of casting a wider net impact, because some people will mention different keywords in your reviews that makes your business more relevant for those terms. And so you're now ranking for more terms, ranking better for your primary terms. Reviews are one of the most important things for you to invest in.
I think that's a great point with keywords too. Greg, do you have any ideas in terms of how to tactfully get a customer to write more in their review? Like, assuming that a keyword does have an impact and, you don't want to just do that 5 stars and leave it blank. What can you do to get people to actually write a little bit?
Yeah, it's something I think I stole this from Darren, actually, that on that, and you have the ask of, hey, do you want to leave us a review on Google? You can give them the card or the link. We like to set up a reviews page on a website so that they can choose which place they would feel more comfortable leaving a review, whether that's Facebook or Google, or if it's a car site or a lawyer site or wherever, whichever vertical sites matter. And on that reviews page, it's a simple, hey, thanks for doing business with us. Let us know how we did. And then a message that says, hey, are you not sure what makes a good review? The best reviews offer more information. So you can answer questions like, did you buy a new car or a used car? Who was your sales guy? Where did you come from today? And so you ask those leading questions that will, people aren't sure what to write most of the time. If they've got those leading questions right there and it's in their head, and your lead-off question is, did you buy a new car or a used car? Well, then they're immediately going to say, I bought a new Ford F-150 or I bought a used Mustang. And so you can kind of subliminally guide people in the direction of leaving the right keywords there. So it's pretty effective to do that, actually. We've seen a lot of really good results of, you have to be careful. You don't want to list 15 questions because then it's too much, but 2 or 3 leading questions can really make a difference.
And if you're asking your friends and family, then you tell them specifically to use these exact keywords. So.
Yeah. Without mentioning that they're friends and family.
Exactly.
But I mean, we talked a lot about Google reviews. Kelcey, obviously there are reviews across other ecosystems, like automotive has Edmunds.com or cars.com. How much effort, generally speaking, should a small business or local business be focused on optimizing for the other players, for the non-Googles like Facebook, Yelp, and the other kind of local directory sites?
I think it's important. I think Google is the most important, but having varied reviews across various platforms is going to be really important as well. We monitor any review site that allows us to comment, and even those that don't, just so we can notify the dealer if they are getting a negative review on DealerRater or something like that. Obviously, we respond to Google, and then we also look at Facebook and Yelp. Most people don't use Yelp, as Darren mentioned at the beginning. It's very flawed. A lot of issues with that. So a lot of our dealers don't like to use it at all, and some of them won't have a Yelp page. And we've explained, they can build one for you. Like, some random customer can just, make that up, and just because it's unclaimed does not mean that people are not talking smack. But in most cases, we're able to manage those for our clients. And the other importance with having various platforms that you're getting reviews on is that those platforms will show up in both organic search and in your Google My Business listing. So if you have, a really great score on Google, a 4.5 or something, but you have a 3.2 on Yelp or, on Facebook or something, that is going to show up too. And people are going to take into account that there are more people, there's more to say than just what people have to say on Google.
Have you encountered that too, Darren, across different industries in terms of diversifying your local presence on these sites?
Yeah, I think Kelcey nailed it. It's really valuable to get reviews on a number of sites, and one of the things is the visibility of those other sites. Someone Googles your brand. We talk a lot. Mike Blumenthal coined the term Google is your new homepage. What do you look like when someone Googles your brand? You've got your knowledge panel on the right-hand side, or it's called your business profile now, and there's a so you got your Google reviews, but then it'll show like up to 3 other sites that you're getting reviews on. And so if your rating looks bad there, or, I actually use it sometimes personally. It's like I'm researching a plumber to hire. I'm like, oh, look at that. They got a 4.8 on Google with, 17,000 reviews. And then I see that on Yelp, they're 2.1 with 15 reviews. And you're like, something's up here. What are they doing to spam Google reviews? Because that's pretty darn easy to spam. You can go to Fiverr and buy Google reviews. Whereas Yelp is so locked down, I actually tend to trust them more. So it's really important to think about, and it's really important on those industry specific, particularly in auto, particularly in medical. So like, Rate MD, all these sort of medical sites are really important because people spend more time like writing like how their experience was with the doctor or whatever on some of these sites. And so vertical specific review sites are really important. And I actually think they'll help your ranking too. On a lot of these sites, the way that you rank on the site themselves is based on how many reviews you have. So like, let's say a site like Yellow Pages. Yellow Pages results are absolutely ranked by number of reviews. You can see that. And so if you're like on page 30 in the Yelp results for lawyer in your city, you get like 2 reviews, boom, you're on page 1. And you know what that means? Now, if someone searches like Lawyer City and that Yellow Pages page is like in the main search results, you just got onto that page. You're getting a link from a page that has high authority in Google. So getting some reviews from a spattering of other review sites can benefit your business and your rankings in a number of ways. Super valuable.
And I'm glad you mentioned medical, because as we get to the end of this webinar, and it's all just like gems of information, it's really interesting the way local's always changing. Over the last few months, we've heard a lot of rumblings about local algorithm changes and the rankings being all over the place. Greg, we're still not completely far out, but what have you seen in terms of like what happened in November or what happened last month in terms of how the rankings are changing either across industries, but how's it impacting local? What have you encountered?
For our clients, we haven't seen tons of difference. You'll see some volatility and everybody freaks out. Oh, there was just some sort of update and things go up and down, but who cares? I was talking to Joy about it, and she said, yeah, I just don't care until it all settles down, and then you see what happens. Because, the first day when things are fluctuating like crazy, what value is there in trying to figure out what's going on when everything's still changing? So wait and see how things pan out, and then see, was there any positive or negative effect? We have a couple of sites that are in the kind of medical type range, where they actually recently got some benefit from the updates. They were hit really hard last year in the spring with the YMYL updates and lost massive, like humongous amounts of traffic. And they're starting to come back. Now, part of that is because of just better SEO being done, but I mean, you could definitely see there was an uptick on an update. So overall, though, I think most of the clients we work with haven't seen much of an effect from any updates recently.
Has that been the case for you, Darren? Have you seen any changes at all, or was it a lot of just like gas being blown in the industry and there's nothing really any that makes any changes?
So when an algorithm update hits, there are changes. People see it, Bright Local's local flux thing will go off the charts, and you're like, oh, everything changed. People are just shifting though. And it's a funny thing. It's like, as Greg has mentioned and what Joy says, don't worry about it. Settle down, wait until you see how it actually pans out over a few weeks to a month, and then you'll actually know. And it's like rank tracking is fluctuating like that all the time, particularly in local. It's up and down. Like if we run a rank tracking software and you look at the results, and one keyword, oh wow, look, we're number 1 for that keyword today. Tomorrow you're number 75. And the next day, oh, you're number 2. It's just like all over the place. And so if you spend a lot of time looking at your rank trackings too carefully, you'll lose your mind. You just have to assume that stuff is going up and down, and it's some days you're doing better than others, and you've got to look at it in aggregate over time. That's the only value. So you can't be like, oh, because back in the old days, it used to be like that. I ranked number 1. Oh no, I dropped to number 5. And that actually meant that I actually dropped to number 5. No, it's just, I think it's because of how there's so much machine learning happening in Google, they're always shifting things. So the algorithm is in constant flux, and as a result, so are your rankings, because it's constantly responding to different inputs and outputs and different behavior signals and all that stuff. And so your rankings are all over the place. Don't freak out. You're going to see shifts all over the place. And you've got to look at your GMB Insights data is probably your best data for like, this is how many clicks and views and searches that we're appearing for in the local results. And the rank tracking is just a general baseline, a sort of directionally, how are we doing? The best thing to use rank tracking for is like, we started working with this client a year ago. This is sort of generally how well they ranked, and now this is how they rank. So seeing that kind of over time is really how you want to use rank tracking, but don't report rank tracking on a daily basis. Someone did a really cool study where they showed fluctuation in rankings hour by hour, and it's totally all over the place. The top is relatively stable, but once you get down to like pages 2 to 7, it's like this. It's nuts. Rankings are changing all the time.
And
wait,
what's it
like? What was it like again? Like this?
Are you messing with me?
No, but I mean, that's a great point too. When you even think about personalization, or what you mentioned earlier about proximity, like the way you see a ranking based on your specific location is gonna, fluctuate differently as well, which kind of leads me into like, we have, this has all been awesome. We're gonna start taking a few questions now. Some people have already lined some up. So for the last 15 minutes, I want some of our experts to answer the questions that are out there. The first one is actually specifically about metrics from John. He asked, and I'll point this one to you, Kelcey, is as an agency, what do you report on about for your local SEO clients? What are some of the most popular KPIs that your clients want to know when you're delivering those reports?
So usually the biggest thing that our clients want to know is really how their organic traffic did and what their conversions were. Conversions are probably the biggest hot button, especially for some of our larger clients that have multiple locations. In our reporting, I'll just kind of break down what we do. We have like a breakdown, summary page that talks about your total traffic, your organic traffic, your total conversions, your organic conversions. And then it kind of breaks down from there. We'll talk about any links that were gained, what your review score is for each of the major, review platforms, whether that's Facebook, Yelp, or Google. What top pages were driving traffic to your site from organic. So like, you can know not only was my homepage ranking really well, but this blog I wrote did really well, and it did really well in this area. So we cover not just the traffic and the metrics itself, but like where it came from and where the person went to. And we find that that's a lot more telling than just basic session counts. Honestly, a lot of dealers don't really want to look at it though. A lot of our clients are like, yeah, I can read the report later. Like, let's talk strategy. And so a lot of our reporting is really based on not just this is what happened, but here's our plan based on what happened, not just last month, but over the last 6 months or whatever. So I think that reporting, it's not just about talking about the numbers, but it's also about adjusting your strategy if necessary. A lot of times it's not, and clients will kind of jump to conclusions and think that things need to be drastically changed because you had a 2% drop in organic traffic month over month. But a lot of times, reporting is just interpreting those numbers in a way that shows the whole picture and not just this one isolated month or whatever it is.
That's really interesting. Greg, have you experienced the same thing? And to add on to that, what is the cadence? How frequently do you usually communicate with clients and report to them?
I mean, we have clients that we communicate with several times a week, and we have clients that we talk to once a month. But for reporting, we report once a month. So we require that client jumps on a screen share or a video call so that we can talk and go over the report, talk about, again, like she said, strategy. What are we doing? What's our plan? Because a lot of our clients, they care what the results are, but they also want to know what's coming. Like, what are you guys doing next? What is the value of working with you guys? So we spend a lot of time trying to prove ROI and show that. And one thing that we like to do is we have the front page of the report only shows organic traffic, month over month, year over year, and leads and then month over month and year over year for leads. Because a lot of times we're not talking to the owner of the business. We're talking to a marketing person at the business, you know, or a manager, and they might be completely sold and love what we do, but the owner is really just concerned about the bottom line. And when that owner checks in once a quarter to see how the marketing strategy is moving along, they don't want a 10-page report with all these metrics on Google My Business and reviews and whatnot that the marketing manager cares about. They want to know, is this expenditure for SEO worth what we're spending? So you have those things on the front page that really tie into the bottom line for the business so that they can see, okay, cool, here's where we were, here's where we are now, this is worth spending money on moving forward.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that, you know, firsthand. It's like the executive C-suite wants to know the money, the investment, the ROI, and just kind of keeping it simple and in your face makes a ton of sense, especially, you know, for the bigger the client with like their time's valuable, money's time.
Yep.
We have another great question from Milo, and I'll direct this to you, Darren. Milo wants to know, working for clients. So this is more another kind of agency question, but working for clients, what is the best way for them to push reviews on Google? What's the best way to get clients to get reviews? How do you communicate that?
So yeah, the way we communicate it is we create the templates for them. So we create the templates for the client. We send them our email templates, like how you're supposed to ask. We even send them the script for how to present the card and what to say, all that kind of stuff. And so that's how we get our clients. And then another big part of it, and this is something that we have on our agenda, is communicating the value. It's huge for them to see, okay, this is what can happen if you do invest in reviews. One of the best things you can do is show them the search results and be like, look at these 3 businesses. This one that's at number 1 has 76 reviews. This one that's number 2 has 85 reviews. And here's you've got 4 reviews. Let's say you're shopping for your particular service. Who are you going to call? You know, those reviews have such a massive impact into consumer behavior. You're going to look at the reviews, you're going to read the reviews. Oh, wow, look at all these wonderful things that people said about this business. I'm not going to look at that guy that has 4 reviews. That's you. You're the business that has 4 reviews. No one's going to look at you. So you've got to get those reviews if you want to compete with these other 2 people. You show it in terms of their competition and they will buy in. That is generally the best thing you can do to get people to recognize the value of the reviews in terms of, you know, people making decisions through the search results.
Totally. I feel like that's something that resonates with people too, who might not understand rankings, might not understand SEO, but when you're talking reviews and you're talking about their baby, their business, you know, they're going to have that visceral reaction, and to, you know, talk on that level makes a ton of sense. Greg, coming back to you, Glory wanted to know, and this is always a tricky one talking about our listings, but if you are a health clinic with 3 different doctors, should there be 4 different GMB listings? How do you handle listings for medical practitioners?
So it just kind of depends, and I know it sucks to give that answer, but you know, we've got medical clients where we don't necessarily need to put listings up for each individual doctor. But we've got other clients where we do want to push that individual doctor because people will look for that individual doctor because they're well known in the community. So in that case, yeah, you want to set up those practitioner listings for each doctor and then nest those underneath the main listing for the practice. So you've got the main practice listing, but then you have, you know, quote unquote department listings for each of the practitioners.
Awesome. And so to finish up before we end here, Nettie has a great question. It's kind of open-ended, but I wanted to throw out to all 3 of you is, what is next? What's your prediction for, you know, local SEO? Where are we going? Kelcey, why don't we start with you? What do you think is on the horizon when it comes to local SEO?
Something that I think is really going to keep growing is the importance of reviews themselves. That's something that, you know, has been kind of hinted at, but I don't think we really understand how big of a deal it's going to continue to be and how much it's going to continue to grow. You know, there's a lot of prior evidence that suggests, like I mentioned, you know, including keywords in reviews and review responses. And like Darren said, people are going to go to the business that has more reviews, especially if they're a good mix of reviews. So I think it's just become more and more important to pay attention to those. And if you're neglecting those, you're really kind of putting yourself in a spot to not rank well or even if you do rank well. My thought on it is if you're not paying attention to your reviews, and if you're not paying attention to the way people view your business online and in real life, all the SEO in the world, all the site optimizations and link building is not going to do anything for you if people ultimately can't trust your business. And that's transparent online, because it's just more and more people are like it was said, more and more people are really relying on word of mouth from others to kind of gauge their opinion of a business before they even step foot.
That's great advice. And it really doesn't even matter the industry now. Like every industry gets reviews pretty much. Darren, I'll go to you next, because I'm sure you agree with Kelcey on reviews, but what else in your mind is next when it comes to local SEO?
I really think that seeing more and more transactional stuff happening in local is coming. So the ability to have your entire product feed up there is, see what's in store. So some retail businesses have that, where you can actually see what products are in there. And Google getting smarter, just like they did in travel and hotels, where when the sale is made, when the click is made, Google takes a cut. It's a massive way for Google to monetize local search results. And imagine they did that across 1 million businesses across the US and Canada. How much money could be made if they made it easy for all these businesses to get their product inventory up there, whether you're an auto dealer or a retail store, or even just like you're a small massage therapy store, but you can easily add your oils and whatever it else is that you sell. Almost every business sells something. Getting all those products up there is huge. And I think that the products you'll see a lot more local product search, and the ability to see all the inventory within your Google listing, and the ability to just quickly make a quick purchase, and Google making all of that transactional stuff very easy for the small business. I think that's a huge area of growth for Google coming soon.
Makes a ton of sense. And also, I remember a few months ago, there's the whole idea of Google monetizing GMB in general, which I think terrifies a lot of businesses. And that's a whole other can of worms that I'm not going to go into, but just the making people pay for Google My Business, let alone just the products. Greg, what do you think? Local SEO, what's the next big thing on the horizon?
I kind of think that real world entity signals are going to come into play a lot more. We already know that Google tracks your location if you've got an Android device, or if you've got the Google Maps on your Apple. And that's how in the Google My Business profile, it will show you the busier times of the day. If a restaurant's typically on a wait at 7 o'clock on a Friday night, things like that. And they just got a patent approved last year for using what they call a quality visit score as a ranking metric. And that quality visit score is defined as the number of repeat visits by particular users to that physical location. So they're not just looking at who's there, they're looking at who's coming back. And so I think a lot of those, I think Google's really trying to figure out ways to associate ranking values with real world signals that are a little bit tougher to fake. If links are the most weighted piece of the algorithm right now, they know it's really easy to fake links and get a lot of links that don't necessarily mean that you deserve to be there. So I think as they try to figure out these other things, like it's really tough to show that a food critic continually goes back to eat at the same restaurant. I think those real world signals are coming. How soon, I don't know, but I think that's definitely it's a focus at Google, and I think everyone should pay attention to how we can look at these signals, and it's full circle. It's old school marketing again. Doing the things that get the business exposed in the community used to be what businesses did for marketing, and then it moved to digital, and everybody stayed shut in. And now we're all going back and doing the old school stuff and getting involved in the community. I think all that's going to come into play for ranking as well.
I'm waiting for the real world behavioral signal spam, where you hire people on Craigslist to just like come to your location with their cell phones.
Well, you heard about the
traffic? Yeah.
The traffic jam. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and we saw, gosh, I wish I remember where I saw it. I was at a conference, maybe it was Search Love in London last fall. It was a conference last fall where somebody found a service online where they're trying to fake GMB reviews, and the service claimed that they were using different devices every time, and that they would take the device into your location for at least 10 minutes of time and then walk out, and a block away they would fill out the review. So it looked like you were physically going into a location and then walking out and leaving a review later, and that supposedly makes the reviews more sticky and more real looking. I don't know. That has to be a bunch of BS, because what service is really going to have that many different devices that they can say, in whatever city you're in, we're going to walk that into your location and then walk out?
They're doing it with Craigslist, guaranteed. They're just having people on Craigslist to go and do it.
It's black hat, but that's the stuff of local SEO legends. All three of you, it's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today at Authority Labs. Thank you for everyone in the audience who watched this and sent us questions. We really appreciate it. If you do want to find, a really solid rank tracking product, authoritylabs.com. We do local, so basically you can go in, search by zip code, search by city, and kind of monitor yours and your competitors' rankings with the rank tracker by Authority Labs. Before we leave, if everyone could just share how you can be found on Twitter. What's your handle, Darren? What's your Twitter handle?
It's at Darren Shaw _. You got to add the underscore after. Some realtor has the one without the underscore.
Sure. Greg, what's your Twitter handle so people can find you?
It's just at Greg Gifford.
Beautiful. And Kelcey?
I'm at Kelcey Drapp, but note that my name is not spelled traditionally. It's Kelcey. So if you don't find me, try switching out some letters.
There you go. All these folks are super helpful on Twitter. Thank you all again. Everybody have a great rest of your Wednesday. This is Garrett from Authority Labs signing out.